Back now on Newsmax Prime, another day of decisions from the United States Supreme Court ruling on issues regarding capital punishment, EPA regulations, and congressional district boundaries. But one decision by the court, for the most part, overlooked by the mainstream media, as the High Court rejects an appeal from Arizona and Kansas that would have allowed states to require proof of citizenship when people registered to vote. Deemed a victory for the Obama administration, the court's decision is the second setback for Arizona, the state I used to represent in Congress back in 2013. The High Court also held that Arizona could not require citizens to provide evidence of citizenship. Wow. To go more in depth, let's bring in our panel. Skyping in from Washington, D.C. on the left, Ari Rabin-Havt, former advisor to Senate Minority Leader Reid, and from Los Angeles, he may be on the left coast, but he's a right-thinking guy, representing the right tonight, political commentator and Newsmax contributor Larry Elder. Thanks to you both for your time on Newsmax Prime. So, not having to prove citizenship to vote, Larry, where does this leave the nation?
You tell me. I thought the Supreme Court had already done this in a 6-3 decision that was authored by John Paul Stevens, at the time the most liberal justice up there. And he said requiring any kind of evidence that who you are is who you are does not impose some undue burden on the process, and that the state has a vested interest in ensuring the integrity of our voting process. So I thought this had already been done, but it certainly is a victory for people that want people to be able to walk up, be handed a ballot box, and not have to give any proof of ID. It's outrageous to me.
Ari, if proof of citizenship is off the table, how do we all preserve the integrity of our ballots and our voting system?
I really didn't know the integrity of our ballots and our voting system is at risk. Anytime this has actually been looked at, studied, observed, or when Republican lawmakers have investigated it, for example, in Iowa, where the Secretary of State spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to investigate this, or in North Carolina, they found no lack of integrity in our voting system. In Iowa, they managed to fine a woman $160 who voted for her daughter by accident and reported herself. So there really isn't a problem of integrity in the voting process. You're coming up with solutions in search of a problem, making it more difficult for people who are citizens.
Wait a minute, Ari. What about the case in Cincinnati, where the woman voted multiple times for Mr. Obama and was found out? What about other cases of voter fraud in Mississippi and other states that you conveniently omit from your discussion of integrity? Have you forgotten about those cases?
You find one-off cases. There's no large-scale mass violation of integrity. Every time it's been studied by people like Rick Hansen, et cetera, who look at it, every time there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in investigations, you find one odd person, two odd people, three odd people who do something. You never find some mass attempt to violate the ballot box by people walking in. Now, ways people have, let's be clear, ways people have tried to violate the integrity of our ballot process, things like ballot stuffing, right? But that's not about ID. That's actually about the people who are running the elections.
Larry,
I suggest you read a book by John Thun, used to be with the Wall Street Journal, all about voter fraud. Voter fraud is a real serious problem in our country. And I don't quite understand, if you don't think it's that big of a deal, what's the problem when requiring people to walk up and identify who they are? Why is that a bad thing? Tell me what the downside of that would be, please.
All right, first, I read the book actually by Mr. Fund and Hans von Spakovsky, and a lot of that book, a lot of the stories they tell turned out to be untrue. So that's the first step. The second step is that it's not just about proving people who they are. There are people who have voted their entire lives who don't have proper ID. There was a woman in Texas who was a judge who was told because her maiden name on one form didn't match the name here, she couldn't vote. There have been, every time this happens, every time a state tries to do this, tens of thousands of people are purged from the voter rolls needlessly. We should be encouraging as many people who have the ability to vote, who have the right to vote as possible, not discouraging voting.
Did you see that video where James O'Keefe sent somebody into Eric Holder's voting precinct, said, "I'm Eric Holder," and he was handed Eric Holder's ballot, no questions asked? Did you see that?
Yes, I saw the video of James O'Keefe committing fraud.
Is that not problematic? Is that not problematic?
No. How many times has that happened other than James O'Keefe walking in? Is there a massive conspiracy of people voting for other people in this country?
It doesn't bother you that it's that easy. Someone can walk in and say, "I'm Joe Schmo," and be given Joe Schmo's ballot. That's not a problem to you?
frankly, if you show me it's a massive problem, then I'll agree it's a problem, but it's not a problem.
Wow.
It doesn't happen. It happens because somebody decides to make a fun video.
Somebody decides to make a fun video. You know, Ari, with all
Also,
due respect,
video
as I've listened to this, I just don't see it quite that cavalierly. And if you remember, a bipartisan commission, including former President Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker, all said it was no undue burden to require ID. So much for bipartisanship on this. Gentlemen, to you both, we appreciate very much your perspectives. And now, what do you think? We'd welcome your comments. You can contact me via email, Facebook, Twitter, and our website, newsmaxtv.com/comments. We're coming back with more right after this.